All right, with week 1 of the NFL season in the books, it's time to turn our attention to week 2 with some huge matchups, including an NFC Championship rematch between Green Bay and Atlanta. We'll discuss all the top games and much more as the OFN on PSN starts now. All right, well, it wasn't exactly a pretty first week of games in football, Tony. We can only hope the level of performance takes a hike. But anyway, before we get into that, how did everything go for you in Hurricane Country? Because I know it wasn't a pleasant time for you last week.
Yeah, it was a rough time. Missed out on 2 UCF football games as far as looking forward to that as a fan. But analysis-wise, just a couple fewer games to look forward to. We broached the subject of Tampa and Miami and the decision to have them play 16 straight games last week. Everybody's got to roll with the punches. That's pretty much the lesson that it taught us, and hopefully, most people weren't more overly affected. I got uprooted through no power, but a lot of people made it through safely, and that's all we can hope for in a monster storm like we had.
And overall, how did everything go for you as far as games and things of that nature? Anything crazy in the handicapping world that took place?
Decent week for me in my contest. So give a little bit of a contest update. The William Hill College contest, I went 4-3. Should have been 5-2. I got destroyed by that heartbreaking Oregon collapse that they were up 42-14 at the break and barely hung on 42-35. A penalty-aided drive there at the end killed the cover. So that prevented me from going 5-2. I was on Notre Dame against Georgia, and they shot themselves in the foot as well. And then I fell into the Idaho UNLV trap. So no qualms there. So 4-3 there, and NFL contest I went 3-2, which is great because the top 5 picks consensus-wise went 0-5. So I'm off to a decent start.
Okay. I mean, did you notice anything as far as what was happening with the line, with favorites, dogs, anything trend-wise in week 1 at all, or just a usual week?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that the most popular pick went over. I think included in those for me were the Falcons, who barely came up short of that cover against the Bears. The most popular pick was Cincinnati over Baltimore, so that blew up in everybody's face. I was not involved in that. I think Houston Jacksonville was in that top 5. So yeah, there are a lot of people that in the Super Contest will be going into week 2 looking for their first cover. So I feel pretty fortunate to be 3-2. I think out of the 2,500 entries, there were only 3 perfect 5-0. So
okay,
we're off to a decent start.
All right. Well, let's get right to it, and we'll start as we'll always start with, and that is, by the way, I just want to remind everybody that you can check out Tony's work. He's an exclusive handicapper over at VegasInsider.com and also an independent sports columnist. We'll always start with the Thursday games, and Houston-Cincinnati, very strange game to try to figure out because of all the distractions Houston's been going through with, of course, their own hurricane troubles. And then the injuries, and then the holdouts. I mean, the offensive line is just terrible. And you know what? Some of it's talent. I mean, Suafilo's terrible. I don't know why they keep sticking him out there. He's a complete bust. Giacomini was a Jet reject, and they're starting him. Kendall Lamb, who's starting. I mean, because obviously with Brown out. So their offensive line's a mess. But you take a look at Cincinnati, and they can't score. They're still scoreless. Dalton had 4 interceptions. Their offensive line is also struggling. Another guy that shouldn't be in there is Russell Bodine, the center. He's not a good player. And Fisher and the other tackle, they both get a chance to really show their marks as top draft picks a few years ago with Whitworth gone, and they laid an egg. So the offensive lines for both teams struggled mightily. And you know what? When you take a look at the recent history of these two teams over the last couple of years, Houston's won the last 2 years by a combined 22-16. I don't think that's changing.
Well, yeah, they've won 6-7, I think, in the series, including the 2 playoff games,
7 of 8
games.
7 of 8.
Yeah. 7 of 8. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy that in a week 2, like, I'll roll my eyes at you if you call most games a must win. This could be a must win for both. You look at their schedule next week. One's got Green Bay, Houston's got New England.
Wow! So, great point.
Yeah, and so the loser's 0-3 basically.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So Cincinnati's a 5.5 point favorite. See, to me, when you've got a series of the last 2 years that's been really low scoring, and then you throw in the fact that both of these teams are having trouble scoring, I don't know if Houston will win. I think it's a flip of the coin, but I'll take the 6 points. That's just the way I'm going to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see, Bill O'Brien, obviously, the controversy there was him pulling Savage after 31 plays. I guess his agent was all up in arms about it. And if Savage won the job, which he did, you would think he'd have a longer leash, but given the offensive line issues that you covered, Watson probably gives them their best chance to win.
That's right. I agree.
With his mobility and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think he gets pulled if the offensive line is in good shape. So, and look, give Watson a shot. I mean, you never know. And if he plays well, then the job is his, because it was going to go to him anyway. All right.
It's his birthday too, so that's always
there.
You
go. And it's national TV. So, and by the way, I would also expect, Watt and Clowney and that defense to step up, because it was the offense that really played poorly, but Fournette had 100 yards rushing against them. And they didn't exactly get a whole bunch of turnovers on Bortles. So we know the defense can play better. I expect them to play better this week. And that's why, to tell you the truth, to me, this is a pretty good money line play too, because again, I think this is a flip of the coin game. And if I can get a flip of the coin game in the NFL where I'm getting at least 2-1 on the money line, I'm rolling the dice on that one. And even though there's a bunch of injuries to both teams, or of course Burfict's out, Michael Johnson's out for Cincinnati. You got the 2 tight ends are out for Houston. You got the 2 receivers out for Houston. You got Cushing suspended. So there's just, I mean, that's why this is probably going to be an ugly game. That's probably clear, right?
Yeah, you can pretty much count on it being ugly, especially since all Thursday games are ugly because of a short week.
Yeah.
This one has multiple reasons why. And it's going to be the lowest total of the season if it closes at 37.5.
Wow.
Last week's Jags Texans close to 38, so it'll just nip that. And yeah, I mean, to me, it becomes Watt and Clowney making a play on defense, because that that's the preference for everybody involved on the Texas sideline, is to keep things as simple as possible for Watson. Hopefully play with a lead, or not try to get him out of character, and then have a fighting shot there in the fourth quarter to pull out a win on the road.
All right, now let's go all the way from the Thursday night game to the Sunday night game, because that's the biggest game of the week. It's the NFC Championship game rematch. And so we're going to find out a lot, even though it's early in the season. It's time to find out if the Packers defense is any better. They sure look pretty good against Seattle, but that Seattle offensive line is pretty much up there with one of the worst in the NFL. So, but still, the Packers held Seattle to 225 yards of total offense and 12 first downs. Daniels had a huge game. Perry had a huge game. They still didn't run the ball very effectively, and then it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers had a big game either. I really wasn't completely impressed with the offensive line, and of course, Bulaga was out. We still don't know if Bulaga is going to play. We don't even know if Bakhtiari is going to play now, too. So that could be a pretty big loss there if both of those guys don't lace it up in the game against Atlanta. But remember last year when Atlanta beat them 44-21 in the championship game, Ryan had almost 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Jones had 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's that secondary for Green Bay that really has to step up. They made a lot of changes in the offseason. This is a huge test for the Packers. Falcons are just a 3-point favorite at home. And I got to tell you right now, not that I would expect that line to be a whole lot higher, even though I think it started off at 2.5. I don't know. I kind of sense when you win 44-21, when you just played them, I think there's a little lack of respect here for Atlanta. I don't know if it was the Chicago game. I don't know. I don't care about that game. I'm going with Atlanta. I think Green Bay needs to prove that they've come a long way, and I still think Atlanta deserves a little credit here.
Yeah, we're going to see about that defense, because Green Bay's defense looks formidable, and controlling the Seahawks, and of course that's winning the battles up front, but at the same time, they were able to keep Russell Wilson in the pocket. They frustrated him. Carson had one long run, but for the most part, the Seattle running game couldn't get going. So now we get to see what's real and what isn't, because Atlanta's going to break off some big plays. Aaron Rodgers didn't have to do much, and you knew that up front because of the pressure that the Seahawks were going to get to him, which they did. He was going to be more of a game manager than normal. So now we get to see him and his usual thing in a duel against Ryan. Really looking forward to this game.
Yeah.
And if the Packers win, they're the it team, number one in your power rankings everywhere, and
right.
having vanquished two of their top end NFC contenders.
That's right.
We'll see.
That's another good point, because if you can open up beating Seattle and Atlanta in back-to-back weeks, wow, that would be huge. That would set a statement. And you know what? Look, Austin Hooper had a really nice game last week. Atlanta hasn't had a tight end since Tony Gonzalez for Matt Ryan to rely on. We know about Jones. We know about the running attack. The offensive line is very improved. That's the reason why Atlanta's offense is dangerous. Boy, you add a tight end to that offense? I mean, I don't know how you stop them.
No question. And that should be the best offense in football, since the Patriots now have some question marks, at receiver. But to me, we'll see after this week, because against the Bears, they kind of left that game out there. It really boiled down to one drop in the end zone on a play that should have been caught, and then obviously the two incompletions, which were solid defensive plays. But so kind of a situation where both teams here have a lot to prove. So good Sunday night primetime game.
All right, a bunch of other good games going on Sunday. We've got Andy Reid and Doug Peterson going up against each other, former coaches that were on the same sideline together in KC, and Philly, and Philly at Kansas City. Kansas City coming off the huge win last Thursday night. That was very surprising. Not necessarily because they won. I mean, it's going to happen. It's first week of the season. We've seen the Patriots lose the first week of the season before. And still it not affect them the rest of the way. But how that offense for the Chiefs exploded. Alex Smith, 368, 4 touchdowns. Rookie Kareem Hunt, who we knew was going to be a good one, but 148 on the ground, almost 100 through the air with 3 total touchdowns. You have Tyreek Hill. I mean, wow. Now, the big disappointment for the Chiefs, though, of course, is losing Eric Berry. And that is so huge, because let's just fast forward to the postseason. Let's say the Chiefs play the Patriots again. Eric Berry ain't going to be there to cover Gronk this time. So that is a big, big loss for the Chiefs. As far as the Eagles, they get a big win on the road. They got to go on the road here. So it's going to be hard for them to win back-to-back on the road especially against this team. Wentz had a crazy performance, but that's the kind of quarterback he is, kind of Favre-esque. But the defense played well. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox had a good game. Now, Ronald Darby's out. That's a significant loss. The secondary is a kind of a weakness. We'll see if Alex Smith can take advantage of that again.
Yeah, no question. I mean, losing Darby really hurts, because that's the position where I think they're most vulnerable.
Yep.
So everybody kind of knew you're going to be able to pass on this Eagles defense, and now Andy Reid's got to be licking his chops to find ways where he's either going to have Travis Kelce have a big game as the primary target, or he'll be the decoy and somebody else will go off. And we just saw the fact that they have some explosive plays in the playbook when they were able to execute them. Really like the way that Alex Smith used his young receivers. Got them short little routes that generated confidence, and then put the ball in their hands to for them to make plays. So I mean, I don't think you could have scripted that better. But now you kind of want to see it again if you're Kansas City, especially at home against a defense that should be vulnerable. From Philadelphia's standpoint, I mean, this is a game where you go in unlikely to win, but there's no question that Wentz is talented enough to take advantage of a very secondary. I did like what I saw in how they utilized their running back against Washington. Blunt looked decent when they got him touches. Smallwood continued his strong preseason, and I thought he gave them a burst. So I probably a game that I'm gonna lean towards the over on that, and hope for some fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, if the Eagles can get enough pressure each week, then maybe and not give the opposition quarterbacks, time to throw the ball, then that helps the secondary, because you take a look at that front seven, and especially the front four. I mean, I mentioned Cox and Graham. Timmy Jernigan was brought in. He had a really good game last week. They drafted Derek Barnett. They have Jim Schwartz. So there's a lot to like about the Eagles' defense and that front seven. And I'm a big Jordan Hicks fan, the middle linebacker. We'll find out whether Kendricks can take that next step. He's been inconsistent over his career. Good player, but can he be a great player? And that's maybe something that they need. And I know they really like Jalen Mills. He's had a good preseason and had an interception in the game. So but that's the pressure. And Sturgis is out now. So I don't yep. I mean, I don't know how important that's going to be. It all depends. I mean, do you know who they picked up?
I saw who they picked up. His name escapes me now.
Well, that's not good.
But the fact is, Sturgis, you really didn't see him be consistent
True.
for his entire career, and then all of a sudden he's dominant in week one.
And then he gets hurt.
And then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens sometimes to some players. Just when it looks like they're turning the corner, they get hurt. I know that actually in a game we're going to talk about a little bit later, I the same thing I thought happened. It's not a serious injury, but I know with Baltimore, they've been waiting for Za'Darius Smith to get going, the linebacker, and he was having a good game and he gets hurt. But it's not a serious injury, whereas Sturgis is going to be out possibly for the entire year. So that could be significant or not. We'll find out. Because kickers are out there, and sometimes you grab a kicker off the waiver wire and they stick. And maybe, like you said, Sturgis inconsistent so far in his career. It might actually be a blessing in disguise, but we'll find out. Tyreek Hill and Marcus Peters are questionable the last I saw. Not sure if they're going to play. You would think they will, but just interesting enough that they're questionable. Just keep an eye on that, because obviously those are two key players for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I think both will play, but I think Peters has been largely cleared. Some nagging stuff. Trying to see if I have a name for the Eagles kicker, it's Jake Elliott.
Oh, the young kid. Okay, very nice. The first round pick. What was he? The first round pick of Cincinnati, was he? Yes, Cincinnati, the Bengals. So, and then Randy Bullock, I think, won the job. So, yeah, it's always tricky. I don't even think you should ever take a kicker in the draft. I mean, how many years we got to see these kickers that get drafted, and it seems like 90% of them never work out. So I don't even know why you waste a pick on a kicker.
Somewhere Roberto Aguayo weeps quietly.
Yeah, Roberto Aguayo. Maybe you should head to CFL. Okay, so Minnesota and Pittsburgh. Let's talk about this one, because wow. Minnesota probably gained more stock to me than any team performance last week, and that's not just because of the way they played, which was, I thought, the best game anybody played all weekend, but because there are signs there where you go, you know what? Okay, I can see this happening. Now, I don't know if I could see this team winning a Super Bowl necessarily, but I could see something happening where maybe this is a team that can make their way to the NFC Championship game. They have a very good defense. We know that. We saw that against the Saints. Drew Brees, high-powered offense. They bent, but they didn't break. That's what you have to do against them, force field goals. We know Mike Zimmer knows how to coach defense. And then Sam Bradford had the game of his career, huge, tremendous game. And then, maybe it's not a coincidence that he's got a running back. And the opposition has got to worry about Dalvin Cook. So they have the balance there. Bradford looks comfortable there. I don't think that was a fluke of what happened. And now they're taking on a Steeler team that, even though they won, it's almost like they lost. I mean, it was an ugly win by the Steelers, and they better pick it up fast. I actually think Minnesota could be a good play getting 6 here.
Well, we'll see. I'll take it game by game with Minnesota, simply because right now Stephon Diggs is healthy. he usually battles those hamstring issues. They always come up and bite him. And when he's 100%, he's a number one. Sneaky as that sounds, extremely productive. And I think in that offense, especially since they're so conservative, Sam Bradford needs that security blanket. He needs that number one receiver. And you saw it come to fruition where when you get a guy like that as your top target and you have a running game established, he can be effective. And I mean, it allowed him to get into such a great groove where, I mean, he was putting the ball in a tremendous spot. I mean, it was really a game that you want to have taped when anybody wants to chastise Sam Bradford, which sometimes Bradford goes in the tank, but from the talent standpoint, that right there was proof that he can get it done at a very high level. And as far as Pittsburgh, they broke off some big plays. Antonio Brown was as explosive as ever, but I think going in, I ended up laying the 9 as far as a recommendation, not in any contest or anything, but put a gun to my head and which way is this going to go, and they almost did pull out the double-digit win. That was a great last drive, great decision from Hugh Jackson to go for it on 4th, and then a little strike that the Kaiser threw to Corey Crawford. I don't think that's completed 5 out of 10 times, but at that point he got the completion in there, and they got the cover as a result. But yeah, I think we'll see better performances out of Le'Veon Bell, and potentially I think if you're going to get the Steelers, you better get them early.
Yeah, that's the thing with Bell, because look, Minnesota's got a good defense, so not sure this is a week to see Bell break out. But boy, Antonio Brown, 11 targets and 11 catches for 182 yards. That's just amazing. And rookie TJ Watt is definitely going to have a great career, and Pittsburgh needs a guy like TJ Watt with that defense. In his first game as a pro, 2 sacks, a pick, and the leading tackler on the team. So great performance from TJ Watt. And Mike Zimmer, old Bengal coach, knows the Steelers well. So that's a really good one at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Let's move on to the Patriots and the Saints. The Saints were the team that lost to the Vikings, and I still think the jury is out on the Saints. I still have some confidence in them because overall, I thought the defense played pretty well for a while, and then in a couple of drives, Minnesota kind of just took over the game. And I, sometimes you just bow to the opposition that's playing well, and sometimes the opposition is just better that day, and sometimes they're better, period. I saw some decent things with the Saints, but the secondary had some issues. There's no question about it. So how does that translate for Tom Brady? You would think that that would translate really well. And of course, Brandon Cooks makes his return to New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Saints are going to be one of those teams where, they can beat you every week, but they can lose to everybody on any given week. Breeze almost hit that big play to Tommy Lee Lewis, but just missed. It seemed like he was just off. Doesn't have the chemistry quite established with anybody but Thomas. The running game, I thought Kamara showed some flashes, but again, he's that whole thing with Peterson. Frustrated.
I don't like that.
Frustrated on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I mean, what did he expect?
I know.
To me, I think it had to mess with his mind that it was in Minnesota, and Dalvin Cook blowing up on the other sideline. He can barely get carries, and when he does get carries, they're predictable. So you come in with your heavy, and you're going to run for about 1 or 2 yards because they know it's coming. Already they're talking about potentially finding him a new home where they can better take advantage of his gifts. But getting back to the Saints, for this game, I mean, it sounds cliche, but you do have a situation where an angry Patriots team with additional time to prepare comes in, gets you at home, and you're missing Zach Strief, and you're probably going to miss Teron Armstead again.
Yep.
Not a good situation for the Saints.
No, and let's see, to me, this is going to be an explosive game. Now, maybe it's the exact opposite score that the Patriots lost in, something like 42-27 Patriots. But this should be a high-scoring game. I mean, the Patriots gave up over 500 yards of total offense. And we're talking the Chiefs. I mean, the Saints can do that if the Chiefs can do that. So something's not right there. It could have just been a game. Super Bowl, first home game, first week. You never know. I'm interested to find out if Hightower plays because we never know with Belichick. He always has a million guys questionable. But, that injury kind of looked pretty bad, but we don't know. And he's a very important part of that defense. We also don't know about Amendola. I mean, does he have how serious is his concussion? Is it serious enough for him to not play? And maybe he had the type of game where he was going to fill in and be the next Edelman, even though we kind of thought, well, maybe Hogan would be that guy, but maybe it's Amendola. Well, if Amendola doesn't play, then maybe it's Hogan. But then, of course, you have Cooks. Interesting that Cooks had 7 targets, only 3 catches. So they're going to have to get some chemistry going there as well.
Yep. No question. To me, I think New Orleans probably has a look of a 6-10 team right now, and we'll see how much fight they have in them after this week, because presumably they'll be down double digits at some point in this game, and I know the spread's right around there, right?
Actually, the spread is 6.5.
Oh, that's a trap line.
Well, it's in New Orleans, so being in New Orleans, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have expected it to be double digits in New Orleans.
I was thinking 9.
Yeah. Okay.
9-10.
Yeah, I would have thought that in New England. I mean, I don't know if I would have thought that in New Orleans, but I mean, I see where you're coming.
I was successful with it with putting guaranteeing I'd play one contest pick last week, and that was Carolina, San Francisco. So I'm going to say I'm definitely going to play New England over New Orleans.
Okay.
And hope for the best there.
All right. Dallas and Denver is another big game coming up of a couple of teams that played in the Super Bowl. That was a long time ago, but they did play. And Dallas is a 2-point road favorite coming off the win over the Giants. And I don't think we can learn nothing from that game because the Giants had no Beckham. And you throw out your best player, and we already know the Giants' offensive line is terrible. And they had no shot. So I don't care about that game at all. And plus, I look at Prescott, and I don't think he had a great game. Matter of fact, Bryant was only 2 of 9 targets. Elliott had 104 yards rushing, but on 24 carries. So I don't think they had an explosive day. They didn't. Whereas Denver, look, I still think Dallas is better than Denver, though, and that's why they're a 2-point road favorite. They were able to run the ball a little bit between Charles and Anderson. They had a combined 121 yards, something like that. Interesting that they have, even though these two teams don't play a lot, I'm just going to throw the trend in there just for stats sake, that they've beaten them 5 straight times since 1998, but they haven't played since 2013. Again, that means nothing. But keep an eye on Bowles and Leary, the 2 offensive linemen for Denver, because that was their problem last year. They bring in Leary and Bowles. Leary looked good last week. Both guys are questionable, even though we may expect them to play anyway. I don't think it's serious. Again, the questionable stuff nowadays sometimes means probable, so we really don't know what's going on there. But just to let everybody know to keep an eye on that.
C.J. Anderson looked fantastic, which was obviously a plus for Denver. I thought Simeon showed a nice command of the offense. I mean, you can understand why they're so pleased with him, and he beat out the hype and Paxton Lynch. So Demaryius Thomas looked healthy. They won a game that could have gotten away from them. So big win for Denver there to cap week 1. And as far as Dallas, they didn't look overly formidable, but at the same time, the Giants never looked like they had a chance with Dak not playing great. And I think that's just a matter of the beats up front. I mean, they dominated both lines of scrimmage, and essentially put the game away, because once the Giants got behind, you kind of felt comfortable that they weren't going to do anything. My power went out right before that game started. So thank NBC for streaming it free for the country. But I got to enjoy that.
Oh yeah, that was a good game to enjoy.
Got to enjoy that with Dallas minus whatever it was, 4, 6.
I mean, look,
never in doubt.
The only thing I'm intrigued about this game is because it's a nice, interconference matchup that you don't see very often. So of 2 good franchises that's won a bunch of Super Bowls, that's what I'm interested in. Other than that, could be a good game. We'll find out. But I think anything can go here. I have no idea what to expect in this game at all. Again, Cowboys are a short 2-point favorite in that one. And by the way, I will say this: I'm just sick and tired of just hearing anything come out of Elliott's mouth. I'm really sick of him. I'm disgusted by him. And you know what? I'm disgusted by the reporters too. One of the reporters asked him something like, "How are you dealing with everything? How is he dealing with everything? What kind of a stupid freaking question is that? Why don't you ask the girl he beat up how she's dealing with it? He's playing football. He's making $1 million. He gets suspended for a few games. He'll still make a few $1 million. Let him deal with it. Give me a break. I mean, I hate people who are just so, they're so ignorant about these things. And I'm so sick and tired of this guy opening his mouth and doubling down that he didn't do anything. It's just sickening to me. I just felt like getting that off my chest.
I hear you on that.
All right.
On
and I won't pick him up in my fantasy league either, even if he was just sitting there, because I couldn't root for the guy. I just couldn't. I don't care how much it would make me in my fantasy league. Okay, let's move on to some other games, because those were the top games. Let's go to the other games, and let's talk about it. I think this is an intriguing game out west. Washington and the Rams, because you have McVay, the former Redskin coach, going up against his former team and coming off a huge win offensively. And now, look, we know it's the Colts, so we get that, all right? But still, the Rams, even if they played this Colt team last year, the game probably would have been 6-3. That's, to me, a huge difference. Goff looked a lot better. I don't think it's a coincidence he looked a lot better with McVay there in year two. Of course, I love Cooper Kupp. He had a huge game. I also don't think it's a coincidence that their line played better. They got Whitworth there to bookend with Havenstein. The defense looked good without Aaron Donald, who returns this week. They had 2 pick sixes, 4 sacks, fumble recovery. They get Aaron Donald back. We talked about the Redskins, not really sure about whether or not on our preseason preview show, whether or not that they'd be able to perform well with the coaching changes, some of the personnel changes, especially at receiver. And Cousins did not look effective, had 2 fumbles and an interception. They didn't run the ball. I'm sorry, but going all East Coast team going to the West Coast, their confidence is sky high. It's 2.5. I like the Rams here.
Yeah, it's a big game for the Rams in that you want to see them not only just make progress, but go ahead and put your foot on somebody's throat when the situation benefits you, like they did against the Colts, and like they could potentially do against a Redskins team that, yeah, like you said, did not look sharp at all. I thought Cousins left a lot of throws, held onto the ball way too long. I mean, they could have had another score late just for cosmetic purposes. Where on 4th down, he's holding the ball where the Eagles are rushing 3 and getting home, and there's 2 receivers running wide open. Cousins doesn't even see him. So it's just not a sharp game from him. And now they got to go cross country.
Yep.
And we'll see what the killer instinct is on this Rams team. Certainly, first returns were good. I thought Todd Gurley ran hard and looked great. I think we'll see, because Goff really did settle in once they had the lead. So I want to see him in a tight game. And this could potentially be that. The spread certainly would indicate that. We're gonna see whether there's a little killer instinct of the Rams, because they could certainly start 2-0, no question.
Yeah, and you also got to wonder, okay, a team that hasn't won a lot of games recently, and then they have a huge opening week. Is there a little bit of overconfidence settling in? That could happen, or it's just also a combination of just coming back down to earth a little bit against a better team. So yeah, if it is a closer game, which we obviously expect it to be, then how do the Rams control that situation? We'll find out, with Washington also being the team that is a little bit more desperate, not wanting to go 0-2. Okay, Buffalo and Carolina. And you got McDermott, the former Carolina defensive coordinator, returning to Carolina. The Panthers are a 7.5-point favorite in that one. And we really don't know what to expect with we don't know what we got out of Buffalo, because they played the Jets and they had 190 yards rushing. I will say this, though. I think the Bills are in trouble. It's going to be a long season because they can't throw the ball. They had one pass play basically against the Jets. That's it for 50 yards, which was a huge timing play, at the right time of the game when it was close. Other than that, their passing game did nothing. So if you can stop Buffalo in the run game, Buffalo's not going to move the football. For Carolina, nice that they got off to a good start after the disappointing season. It was San Francisco, but a win's a win. And as long as Cam Newton just gets better and better with more reps and more games, that's the thing, because he was erratic in that game. So if his timing is a little bit better in this one, then I have no problem believing that they're going to cover that spread. But if his timing's off, then this one could be a little bit closer than we think. I still like Carolina.
I mean, he had a touchdown to Olsen that was, me or you could have thrown it, and he completely whiffed and threw the ball into the stands. Then that was the series where you could tell he was really fighting his timing issues. The only way that you're going to improve on that is reps, in practice and live in game reps. So this will be interesting. We'll see whether the Bills can test them up front. That's really the only way they can win this game. Create some turnovers with some pressure up front. Because again, I'm in total agreement that the Bills aren't going to score many points on anybody, especially a Carolina defense at home. That looks kind of locked in. So
and the Bills better have Cordy Glenn. It's another player that's banged up a little bit. They need him healthy. It's the best lineman they have, and him and Incognito on that left side are as good as there is in the NFL. So, because Dawkins is a rookie and he didn't have a great game last week. But we would expect Glenn to play again, but you never know. So keep an eye on that. He is questionable. Okay, so next game is Tennessee and Jacksonville. And this game, now you got an 0-1 Tennessee team against a 1-0 Jacksonville team at Jacksonville. Now, how does Jacksonville respond? They're in a kind of almost the same situation that Houston was in. They're at home. They're now maybe dealing with a little bit more of distractions of being home. A lot of people's lives have been disrupted with the hurricane, and they're coming off a win. Again, a young team, just like we talked about the Rams, not used to winning. Impressive big win on opening week. How do they react to that? Now, the home team in this division matchup has won 6 straight games. Jacksonville's covered 4 out of 6 overall, so keep that in mind. But I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to believe that Tennessee is going to start off 0-2. They got to start running the ball better, and they also have to run. They also have to have a little bit more emphasis on the running game. In a close game with the Raiders, you cannot pass the ball 41 times and run the ball 21 times when you have DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, that game slipped away from them because they were in the game despite not playing well. And then the Raiders just made the plays in the fourth quarter, and that really was what the game boiled down to. Look, this is a golden opportunity for Jacksonville, period. They're opened the season playing well. They dispatched to Houston, and now you can basically beat the top 2 teams in your division, and get a fast head start. So I would have had this game a little higher on this list because I'm really looking forward to seeing what can be done, what Mariota is going to do, and what seriously we can expect from this Jaguars team, because we knew coming in as they weren't going to be as bad as the whole Blake Bortles press clipping made it seem like they would be. I mean, there's just too much talent on the roster. So the fact that they went out and dominated, I think is a great first start. And now we get to see whether they can beat a Titans team that probably will be much better in November than they're going to be right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, really, most of their talent on defense, and that's why their defense played really well. They had a tremendous game, and you take a look at the overall sacks. They had 10 sacks, 4 by Campbell. Miles Jack played well. Dante Fowler played well. Unfortunately for Blake Bortles, he has no Allen Robinson now the rest of the season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One thing also to note for this matchup, both AJ Bouye and the other corner, the kid from Patrick Ramsey, did not practice this week.
That's right.
For most of it. So we'll see. I mean, and I think Mariota and Corey Davis are going to connect sooner than later. They've already gotten a touchdown, but I'm talking about him being the clear-cut number one. They also targeted Decker a few times around the goal line, and that didn't seem to work as well as it should going forward. So I mean, I'm really excited about the personnel the Titans have, but just the fact that they got such an uneven start preseason wise and training camp due to injuries and whatnot, I just don't think we'll see the best from them. So they may lose this game, and the Jaguars might be 2-0 and your AFC South division leader.
All right, that's a scary thought. Let's move on. And the next two games involve the two teams that did not play last week because of the hurricane, Miami and Tampa Bay. Miami at the Chargers, Tampa Bay hosting Chicago. And with Miami, they played the Chargers last year in San Diego. It's the Chargers home opener in Los Angeles. Chargers are a 4-point favorite in that one. When the Dolphins beat the Chargers last year, that was a Kiko Alonso last-minute pick six in a 24-24 game that propelled the Dolphins to victory. The Chargers, as you mentioned, as we talked about with Denver, they came back strong, down 24-7 in the fourth, had the field goal blocked, or else maybe it goes to overtime. We also don't know what to expect from these teams too. With Tampa Bay, Chicago, Glennon goes back to Tampa. That's a nice little story. The Bears are going to have a good defense this year. They were banged up last year, so we will see them playing a little bit better. We saw them against Atlanta play pretty well. And so Tampa Bay, will they be rustier than Chicago because Chicago played a game? Same thing for Miami against the Chargers. So that's something we just don't know. We don't see this happen in the first week of the season. This is like unknown territory to kind of figure out how Tampa Bay and Miami will play after not playing last week.
The one thing we can definitely say is that the Bucs have no reason now to be surprised by Tariq Cohen the way that the Steelers were, or not the Steelers, who the Bears just play.
They played Atlanta.
Yeah, so the Falcons got my teams mixed up, my heavyweights mixed up. But yeah, I mean, Cohen was fantastic, and now he's not gonna. They're not gonna have that element of surprise there. So it'll be interesting to see how they move the football. I mean, Kevin White again shelved before he even gets started. Broken collarbone. They had already. I think they're using. Josh Bellamy now is going to be one of their main receivers. So, I mean, on paper, the Bears have very limited weapons. They've got a running game, I guess, that you can kind of count on, but that's not a good matchup this week against the Bucs and their front four. This could be a situation where Tampa, if they execute, can look really good right out of the gate. As far as Miami, the Jay Cutler era begins, and we'll see. I don't think Tannehill will play another game as a starter in Miami. So we'll see just how seriously they take Cutler. And it's a 1-year deal that he signed.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think if they get off to a decent start, make the playoffs, I think they can get him back. So, really interested to see, because there's so much talent on that Dolphins team on both sides of the ball, if healthy. They can be a playoff team. So definitely intrigued to see it all get started.
All right, and then the Sun, and I'm also, I'm very interested to see how that home field situation is going to work for the Chargers, because I actually, as we talked about in the preseason show, I would not be surprised that is an advantage for the Chargers. The Chargers, going back to, why do you think they left San Diego? Because it's like playing in Miami. There's just no home field advantage in that game, in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So will 29,000 in a confined little space, will it be much louder? Will it actually be a home field advantage for them? It could be. So I'm very intrigued to see how that game goes.
They're a really talented team too. I mean, you look at their personnel, their corners, now that everybody's healthy. Barrett and the other kid. I mean, I was seeing as that game got underway against Denver, and you go right on down the lineup on that defense, pretty impressive. Then you look at at Phillip Rivers obviously running the show, and he's got an elite running back to work with, and everybody's healthy in the passing game. I was surprised that they lost, in the manner that they did to Denver, just because I didn't expect them to get down the way they did, and then you saw the explosiveness in that comeback. So I'm expecting big things. When we looked at the preseason numbers for the AFC West, kind of was an eyebrow raiser that the Chargers were being lumped in there with the Broncos. But no, seeing it develop after game one, even though they lost, they're as good as anybody almost.
Yeah, they got I mean, the front seven is their strength, of course, with Ingram and Bosa and company. Now they do. I mean, Verrett's been injured over his, and he's got the talent. They do need him to step up. But Casey Hayward was a huge loss for the Packers, and he's been a huge gain for the Chargers. But they've got kids playing too. King and Jenkins are playing. They drafted those guys, so kind of reminds me of the Eagles' defense. Their strength is up front. Even though they got Hayward and the Eagles don't have a Hayward, but there's also some questions in the secondary for the Chargers. But if they can pressure you with Bosa and Ingram, then that goes a long way. Okay, Detroit and the Giants. This is the Monday night game, and obviously a much bigger game for the Giants because they lost and Detroit won. Even though that Detroit game with Arizona, as bad as Arizona looked, both teams really didn't look very well. It wasn't until late when Detroit kind of started to get a little bit of rhythm going. But remember, we talked about this game last week, and I said, well, the reason I like Detroit over Arizona, Matthew Stafford's better. And there you go. And they were a short dog. And that's why. I mean, Matthew Stafford is just better than Carson Palmer. And I don't think there's that huge advantage here. And I don't even know if Detroit has, because Taylor Decker being out, I mean, Greg Robinson, the Ram cast off, is playing tackle, and he stunk again last week. And you go up against that giant defensive line, that could be problems for Detroit. Plus, they didn't run the ball again against Arizona. So you can't keep doing that, especially on the road when Detroit has to go on the road. They're a different team. If Giants get enough pressure on the Lions, especially after a loss, I would expect they will. But it's all about Odell Beckham. And if Odell Beckham plays, then I feel real strong that the Giants win this game. If he doesn't play, then all bets are off.
Yeah, and we're not going to know, it seems, until maybe Sunday for sure. To me, if you didn't watch the Cardinals Lions game and you just looked at the score, you can walk away with the wrong idea real quick. I mean, It was such a weird game, a roller coaster of a game, because Stafford, his first throws a pick six, and the Cardinals are up. The Cardinals are up most of the way, and then the Lions come back and hit you with a flurry. And once the implosion was quick and definite for Arizona once they got down in that game. It was a weird game for the Lions. So they threw Ziggy Ansah out there basically on 2 days of practices, all camp, and they've had issues too with keeping guys healthy. You mentioned their offensive line, so I think they were fortunate to win that game, but they should definitely look to take down the Giants and start 2-0, because the Giants are there to be had. Even if Beckham plays, he's not going to be at 100%. So can he be enough of a decoy where Eli can build up some offense with some of the other guys?
Well, Brandon Marshall, he's got to step up. They'll need him.
Barely looked this way, right?
No, and that's the thing. One. Yeah, that's the thing. So, but maybe if Beckham's out there and he doesn't have to go up against a number one corner, then maybe that'll help him. So, both teams did not run the ball at all last week. By the way, the Giants beat Detroit last year at New York, in New Jersey, 17-6. Stafford didn't have a touchdown pass, obviously. That's the thing. I mean, Detroit, you get them on the road, and they can be a different team. And we also should mention, of course, the rookie Kenny Golladay had a huge game with the 2 touchdowns. But we'll see. Again, Beckham, that's a really big deal because you don't want Lewis and Vereen, your top 2 receivers, if you're the Giants. That's not going to work. You're not going to win games.
Nope.
And they're a 3.5-point favorite. Quickly, let's round out the last several games. Baltimore, Cleveland, Jets, Oakland. You've got San Francisco, Seattle, and Arizona, Indianapolis. And so, with Baltimore, one game, and I feel good about one of my sleeper picks. I really like what I saw on defense, obviously. Of course, 5 turnovers, 5 sacks. And the guys that are playing there are legitimate players. So I really like what's going on with their defense. I do think the loss of Woodhead is a huge loss. But I do like the fact that West and Allen ran the ball. Talked about West looking good in the preseason. They combined for 151 yards rushing, and the fact that Macklin scored that touchdown. That's also big because that makes Mike Wallace a number 2 instead of a number 1 possibly. And by the way, Baltimore's won 3 straight in this series, straight up and against the spread, and they're 8.5-point favorite over Cleveland, who we talked about, who a game loss to the Steelers last week.
Yeah, and I think Ravens definitely should win this game, but I'm gonna not mess around with the Browns. To me, I think that backdoor cover, even though they walked in the front door,
sure.
But I think that's the start of things to come.
Yeah, and
for them.
that's a big number.
They got some fight to them.
Yeah.
Like Kaiser, definitely. Yeah, you look at that team and it's significantly improved over what we've come to expect from Cleveland.
Good defense. Greg Williams doing a good job, and they don't even have Myles Garrett probably till October. By the way, keep an eye on Joe Thomas. Now you would expect him to play, but he's like probably the team's best player. And he is dealing with a knee injury, so keep that in mind. You don't want to have Joe Thomas out of the ball game with the rookie Kaiser playing. Jets in Oakland, 13.5. I thought this line should have been like around 16 or 17, to be frank. I don't think anybody knows what to expect with Oakland in their last home season and how the fans going to take it. I think they'll be fine, but you never know. I think if anybody's going to be upset, it'll be outside the stadium. I can't imagine, maybe you'll see a couple of signs. I don't know. But anyway, Marshawn Lynch going back home, playing a home game. Khalil Mack and the defense played better than I think people thought. So I just don't see how this game can possibly be close in the fourth quarter unless Oakland turns the ball over a few times, maybe misses a couple of field goals, and the Jets backdoor cover.
Did you find a way to see a lot or all of Jets Bills? Because that's one of the games that I did not see.
Well, as a Jet fan, unfortunately, I did. Look, with this team, I will say this. It's just a matter of games. Unless Todd Bowles wants to get fired in a couple of weeks, as soon as Bryce Petty's ready to go, he has to start. That's it. I mean, Bryce Petty needs to play. They got to see what they got there. Josh McCown's back up. He didn't play poorly. It's just that he played too conservatively. He checked down all day long. They've already talked about.
Were there plays to be made?
Well, they talked about. They said they need to be more aggressive. Now, whether or not they're blaming McCown, or again, it's hard for me to see. But I can understand why he was being. McCown. I mean, he's injury prone. He probably as soon as he sees a rush coming 3 feet away, he gets rid of the ball. He doesn't want to get hurt. So I don't know if that changes. To be honest with you. And I don't think it will. I really don't. Especially on the road, Raiders. I think it's just a matter of time. That's why I say if they lose this game big and they don't go to Petty in the third game, if he's actually the number 2 this week, because he was injured last week, then Bowles should be fired. And it should be forget it, gone, no more McCown. But yeah, I there's no reason in the world to think that the Raiders won't win this game easily. Any
bright spots for the Jets? Adams, maybe?
Yeah, Adams played really well. May struggled. I was a little bit surprised how much he struggled. They couldn't contain the running game, which was. But McClendon's terrible. That's the problem with their rush defense. He's terrible, and they missed Snacks big time. That's a big loss for them a couple years ago.
Yeah,
they haven't been able to replace him yet. And offensively, I think overall they also need to run the ball a little bit more. Their two best players really, or two of their best players on offense are Forte and Powell, and they didn't run the ball. They ran the ball a little bit, but they only carried a combined 13 times. You just can't do that when those are supposed to be two of your more important players. So you got to find ways to get the ball in their hands, even if it's just, look, that's creative offensive guy, but they have a new first-time offensive coordinator in Chad Morton, and a lot of new faces there. So it's not really too much of a surprise that they struggled a little bit. But look, you know what? They were a 2-point conversion away from tying the game late in the game, late third quarter. And then, like I said, then they had the breakdown on the 50-yard pass, which led to the final score for Buffalo. So that was it. That's the game. It wasn't like Buffalo killed them. It's just that,
right.
But then again, we think Buffalo is pretty bad too. So.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. The Raiders, I did watch a ton of Raiders Tennessee, and it seemed to me like they were making a concerted effort to get Amari Cooper touches like a typical number one, and I mean, to me, he's the number one over Crabtree.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, they forced it too much. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, 3 times in a row by the goal line. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I know. You got Marshawn Lynch, and what are they? Who is what's his name? The Seattle coordinator. What is he in Oakland now?
Which one?
I'm trying to remember his name now. The Seattle offensive coordinator, because that guy does nothing but throw the ball inside like the 2 or 3. He did it not only in the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to blame Pete Carroll, but Pete Carroll, he's not the guy who calls plays. Now, yes, Pete Carroll could have overridden the coordinator, but this is not normal. The coordinator is the one that called the plays. You don't blame the head coach. The coordinator called the pass in the Super Bowl, and it's the same coordinator that's making the same calls. I think it's is it Darrell Bevel?
Yeah, Brett Favre's old coordinator.
Darrell Bevel, right? That's his name?
Darrell Bevel.
Yeah. So that's all he does is throw the ball inside the 2 or 3 yard line. And so that's what the Raiders did. You have Marshawn Lynch there, and you're throwing the ball at the goal line. Silly. So.
Yeah, but Lynch looked good. He
did.
He looked sharp. He looked like they gear off did him a world of good. So yeah, I mean, I also don't think that the Jets get within 2 touchdowns of the Raiders, but yeah, that's why I was picking your brain on that because I hate laying such heavy lumber. But,
I know. In the NFL, I could easily see this game being like a Ram-Colt score. I really can. So it could get carried away. Well, let's just put it this way: if it's the first quarter. And it's 14-0. The game will be 45-10 at the end of the game, and I think that's exactly what we'll see. I know, even though I know they're trying to entice you in a way, but maybe they're also trying to scare you with that 13.5.
Sure.
They're going, well, maybe I should, maybe I should take Oakland, and you're going, well, are they enticing me to take him? Is there a reason I shouldn't? So they're, I think they're screwing with our heads there. But I just...
Yeah, we'll see what the line movement does on Sunday. I'm curious.
I think it goes up.
I haven't looked at lines this week because I've been so displaced. But yeah, I mean, they're counting on it climbing up past 14.
It has to.
I guess with public money. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think on Sunday it probably should go up to 15. Probably. Okay, and then you also have the other 2 games. San Francisco, Seattle, as we just talked about Seattle. What an ugly game for them. Their offensive line is bad. They're going to be bad all year. They had 158 yards passing, 225 total. Leading rusher was Russell Wilson with 40 yards. They are going to get Thomas Rawls back this week, so you expect them to run the ball a lot more effectively against the Niners. Look, the Niners only gave up 287 yards of offense. So their defense actually may not be that bad, and so maybe this will be a little bit more of a low-scoring game, even though Seattle's won 7 straight in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think Seattle's under pressure to put a little more because they don't want to get stuck in that run. Last year was a terrible run offensively. We know the line's going to be bad, but you still have to be creative and get the ball to you guys who can push you forward. So I'm definitely interested to see how the running back situation plays out if Rawls returns. And he struggles. I think it's Carson's gig to take potentially in this game just by breaking out because he to me looks like the most explosive of the back.
Well, look, Rawls. If Rawls is healthy, they're going to try to get Rawls the ball because when he's healthy, as we saw last year, he can cut, he can put up big games, but it's also very hard with that line. You'd rather have a quicker back. So yeah, I mean, it does look like Carson is going to wind up more than likely, unless I know Procise is coming back from injury. Maybe they're going to be a little bit careful with him. But yeah, we should see a better running performance from Seattle this week. And then finally, Arizona and Indianapolis. Arizona favored by 7. With that performance, it shows you how bad the Colts situation is with their quarterback play, that they're a 7-point dog to Arizona. Arians and Pagano going up against each other. 2 guys who coached together several years back in Indianapolis before Arians, who won Coach of the Year. The year Pagano was out all year with the health issues, and then he moved on to Arizona. Anyway, Palmer's coming off 3 interceptions. No David Johnson. So everybody wants to talk about the Indianapolis Colts quarterback situation. I think we should also be talking about the fact that how David Johnson not being on the field is going to affect Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like for continuity's sake, they signed Chris Johnson because it seemed like they were done with him. And then you heard conflicting reports as to whether they were interested in having him back, and I guess they did sign him. We'll see how they handle that. And then as far as the Colts, are we going to see Jacoby Brissett and probably early? I think so. I mean, Tolzien to me is not a starter, and I know he's going to get the call out of the gate, but I think he's on a very short leash.
Yeah, I think Brissett's there. I mean, Dan Shonka made a good point yesterday that chances are the reason why he would get the start is same thing with Houston. You know, they're going to bring in a guy with mobility, and that's it. You know, because Brissett's not a starter either. So they're both
No,
bad
no, no, no. Have they
quarterbacks.
made that call or no?
I
Because
don't I
you know
haven't I
me,
don't
I'm
think
behind the eight
so.
ball.
Yeah, I don't think they've made it, but it's sort of like the Watson thing where even though they haven't made it, he's gonna start. That's what I think we're hearing. Again, I haven't heard a starter
Okay.
yet situation myself, but I think it's obvious that they're going to go to Brissett in this one. So, but I don't know. We'll see. Not official yet, as far as I know. All right. So, Tony, again, your NFL Essentials article at VegasInsider.com will be up tomorrow because of the scheduling situation this week from the hurricane.
Correct. Yeah. Look for Friday, and it'll be up. You know, it'll be up all weekend. So, you know, you can, and I'll have more information that comes in tonight as a result, because normally it's up by now, but because of the hurricane, you know, we're delaying until tomorrow. So yeah, Friday Essentials, and then it'll be up there Sunday.
Excellent, Tony. Appreciate it. I know you'll be in a little bit better of a situation next week. I know how crazy it must be to kind of be all over the place, being displaced from the conditions. So, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule to talk to us again, and we look forward to talking to you next Thursday about Week 3.
All right, much appreciated, man. Have a great weekend.
You too, Tony. All right, that's Tony Mejia. And matter of fact, you can always find Tony's work over at VegasInsider.com. And we will also, of course, tweet out all the information, the on-demand show on our Twitter handle, which is at PrimeSN. So don't forget that to check out our Twitter handle at PrimeSN, because we have all the information there that comes out either before the shows or after the shows, including, of course, how to reach our hosts like Tony. Okay, so that'll wrap it up. And we will talk to you again next Thursday right here on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. Don't forget, you can also check out all our shows available several hours after the live shows on YouTube or iTunes, both pages under Prime Sports Network. And don't forget also, you can check out Ourlads.com for the best NFL and college football depth charts in the industry. Thanks again for tuning in to this Prime Sports Network production. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. We'll see you Friday morning. That's tomorrow morning for another Ourlads Football Network show, OFN Fantasy, with Jamal Murphy. We will never see the truth around. Another promise, another scene, another package like